Philip, to your point, Trump continues to claim election fraud, which is false. A star witness in yesterday's hearing was none other than his former Attorney General, Bill Barr. Here is what Bill Barr had to say.
I told him that the stuff that his people were shoveling out to the public was bullshit. I mean, that the claims of fraud were bullshit. And, he was indignant about that.
Some of the notable moments included when Wyoming Congresswoman Liz Cheney said Trump took advice on election results from a, quote, inebriated Rudy Giuliani. And perhaps equally, if not more shocking, was the revelation that Trump and one of his PACs profited off of election conspiracy theories to the tune of $250 million. What do you guys think of these revelations? Crystal, I'll pose a question to you.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that his innermost circle really told him that there were no claims of election fraud. There was no evidence of election fraud, but yet they still allowed this coup, this plan of the big lie and the plan of the coup to move forward. So those are two of the big questions that I have to ask Mark Meadows and other folks who were around him. If you absolutely knew that there was no evidence of election fraud, why did you allow the president to continue pushing this lie? And other Republicans, quite frankly, continue to push this lie. Further, why did you allow the president to move forward with inciting a riot, with encouraging people to go and storm the Capitol, if you knew, again, that there was no evidence of election fraud? So I don't think that the president is the only person that's liable in this situation. There are many other people who were responsible, just as responsible as he was, although he is the sitting president. But to know and to discover through these hearings that so many people told the president no, knew that there was no evidence of election fraud, and yet all of these things continue to take place, that is deeply disturbing, not only for what happened, but also for members of Congress who participated or had some allegiance to this president during that time.
I'm glad you brought up Meadows, because I think one of the really interesting revelations was not only Meadows' a degree of knowledge and sort of complicitness in this, but then also the testimony they collected from Ivanka Trump, who was also very much admitting to this big lie. And I'm very curious to see what types of consequences in public life and in political life these people will incur. I should hope that there should be some extremely significant squandered credibility, but I don't want to be overly optimistic when looking at the state of the current GOP. So.
Yeah, I think it depends on if they decide to kind of forcefully, more explicitly come out against Donald Trump. I think we've seen that Democrats will rehabilitate and give an MSNBC show to almost anybody who's critical of Donald Trump. They're trying to make Liz Cheney president now, a Democratic
the Ivanka Trump MSNBC slot. What do you think of that, Philip? How do you think this is going to play out going forward?
Yeah, I'm not sure if MSNBC is Ivanka's speed, but this is something that's really interesting, right? You have this entire slate of people who were in the administration, and from their testimony, it's clear that they should have known better. But that is sort of undercut, right, by the testimony from Liz Cheney. Excuse me, that soundbite from Liz Cheney where she says, well, a clearly inebriated Rudy Giuliani. And the reason I say that is it's almost like, are we going to note that this was kind of nefarious and there were people who should have said something but didn't, or was it just not this big mastermind plan, but instead a lawyer who's past his prime and has dipped too much into the Pinot, and so it's sort of a question of like, is this a cunning villain or just an incompetent fool? But the thing here that I think actually is really interesting is, maybe David French has a take on what these people in flyover country might say, but they might not be following all of the questions about insurrection or who did what when. But that question about who profited from this, I think that if you just sort of gut check people on the basic question of, is it fair for, the former president to have raised these hundreds of millions of dollars ostensibly for a legal defense fund, but maybe that money wasn't used for a defense fund or to combat some of these concerns about the election. That's something that I think will make people angry, even if they are just tuning in ever so casually to these hearings.